All right, so how's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Wednesday. It is about 10:21 a.m. here, California time, December 11th, 2024 is the date. Latest activity here on the Earthquake 3D globe shows looks like a 1.6 there across the Nevada area. Still seeing some activity in the Northern California region. Nothing at all here across the western area of the Pacific Plate. Once again, that's a little scary. It's been that way ever since the ramping up of earthquake activity out here across this area of the plate. Let's go ahead and zoom in here across the California area. Just coming in with a, looks like a 2.5 here in the last half hour. I think that earthquake is off the seismograph stations here. Not seeing it up there right now. One on the Dinsmore station, one in China Lake. Obviously, there's some considerable distance between these two stations there, so that's a separate earthquake down south. But we do have a little bit of activity ramping up out here this morning. A couple twos stirring up. And that looks like just, what they're reporting out here. A number of threes last night in the same area as well. A broader scale area today in terms of earthquake movement. Last one along the Cascadia looks to be a 2.1 from yesterday. Still watching this region here, folks. We've been seeing quite a bit of tremor activity here. I'll show you guys real quick. A lot of tremor activity down south here across the southern end. And it's been that way, well, for a couple weeks here. And if we just look at the last week alone here, there's a lot of strain that's been building up here across the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. This is tremor activity, not volcanic tremor in that sense, such as harmonic tremor from volcanic or fluid movement, but this is a result of the plate here. It's going to be the Gorda plate, slowly but surely being subducted underneath the North American plate here. That's at the plate boundary. This is going to be the start of the North American plate. So goodbye Gorda plate. That's eventually going to be gone as it disappears underneath this region. Of course, that happens throughout time. Not super fast. Obviously, that wouldn't be a good thing. So elevated activity, right, in the tremor department, that's a result of the slow slip event that occurs downstream in any subduction zone. It's not an earthquake. An earthquake is a sudden release of pressure. This is more or less a slow vibrational frequency being picked up between the two plates as they slowly slide past each other. And the result of the tremor activity downstream adds further strain upstream here. It just makes sense, right? We don't get slippage around this area. This is where the locked area is at for the southern end of the Cascadia. So it's been elevated out here. We've seen, in fact, let's see here. Let's go back the last month. See when it all started. Looks like it may have started, well, there's a little bit of activity up north, but maybe back in early September or so. A lot of strain, but most of the elevated activity around the 25th to 27th. A lot here in the first week of December. And, of course, all this activity adding strain upstream. That's kind of why we had that 7-pointer out here. That was off the Cascadia, obviously. But at the same time, the dynamics out here around the triple point boundary are, quite dynamic in terms of stress accumulation between the three plates here. And technically, that's what it is. It's a triple point between the Pacific plate here to the south, the Gorda plate here, and the North American plate, which begins at the southern end here of the Cascadia subduction zone. So a lot of tremor activity, ultimately creating some earthquake activity just upstream. We've seen a number of earthquakes as well off on the Blanco fracture zone. That adds further strain down here as well. I think that's why we're seeing this plate being pushed and shoved underneath this area with a more heightened tremor event that's occurring here. But no big earthquake activity yet on the Cascadia subduction zone. I still think there's a decent chance that we could get something here soon. The tremor's elevated. Earthquake activity is popping up here. Not so much on the Cascadia specifically. It's a little bit down south here, at the extreme southern end. If you really think about it, some of these quakes are definitely within the extreme southern end of the Cascadia megathrust area. So, and a few earthquakes up here as well, venturing northward. That's a subduction zone quake there at about 12 miles for 2.9. This one's 16 miles, so it's a subduction zone quake. But nothing yet on this area. And I say yet because it's a good possibility here, and a decent chance that we may see something pop here. It's been 324 years since a full rupture along the Cascadia, but in between, not all the time though, but in between a lot of these major events here, by the way, which occurs roughly 250 years to up to, I think it's about 450 years or so. Depends on who you ask. In terms of a full rupture, we get these partial ruptures occurring here with an up to the 8.4, 8.2 magnitude earthquake here, just from a partial rupture of the Cascadia subduction zone. And that's kind of what I'm leaning towards out here. We've seen, we could go back here beyond the 30 days, and this whole area has seen a bunch of movement out here. I'm going to go back here real quick and just show you guys just kind of what we've seen this year. So we're going to go to just around the 1st of January or so. I'm going to draw a little area out here across the Cascadia. I know we've had a lot of activity up here as well. So going to have to go inland just about like that. That is going to include all of the recent events from the 7-pointer, but that's okay. We'll sort them out. So, if we do away with all these earthquakes right here from the 7-pointer, obviously there's going to be a lot of aftershock activity, but in general, the Gorda Ridges out here have been quite active. Now, that is a result of a spreading seafloor center here. Notice how these ridges, this is new oceanic crust being formed due to the separation of the plate boundary here. This is the Gorda plate boundary along with the Pacific plate boundary, Pacific to the west. So that is creating new seafloor and adding further strain. It's slowly getting rid of this microplate here, the Gorda plates going underneath this area. And those ridges there, definitely a sign of quite a bit of strain, the dynamics that takes place here. So when all this happens here, obviously we got to watch this area, the Cascadia subduction zone, because it's trying to push that plate further underneath the North American region. So that's a lot of activity alone there across the Gorda Ridges. Seen some 4s and 5s, a number of 5s out there as well. So it makes sense to see the amplified possibility of a partial rupture on this area. There was one earthquake back in June of this year right at the Cascadia subduction zone region of 4.3. One up here as well. This is a more recent one in October, a 5-pointer just shy of the Cascadia. And that's about it. Most of the focus here is down around this area right now. Blanco fracture zone quite active. Just, you can pretty much draw an area from about Coos Bay, maybe a little bit northward, southward here that we need to watch for that rupture. Up north, the Cascadia pretty quiet across this region. The northern end is just all focused down here right now. A lot of strain. A little bit of activity up here at the extreme northern end of the Juan de Fuca Ridge. There's a couple different boundaries up here. Some strike slip and also some spreading seafloor center areas, but not as much as what we've seen down here, focused on the southern end this year. So that's why I'm still, thinking that we have a decent chance here. Unless, here's the thing, unless we see some major earthquake activity here across the western Pacific, then, excuse me, then I think we might be able to get a little break of the temporary strain, the strain and pressure that's accompanied the current activity right now. We've seen it happen in the past. I better mention this because back in 2011, the 9-pointer, right? There's an article put out in some science website here following that 9-pointer in 2011 that landmass the movement from that giant earthquake. There was I don't know if it created a new island out here or what, but there was a massive amount of land movement here. That, according to the article, relieved some strain out here for California. And I noticed at the time, it did look like some quieter activity. But we're past that now, and we're into a stage of heightened activity out here across the West Coast. So that's why I say until we see some major movement out here across the Western Pacific, we're still underneath the gun here in terms of the larger scale potential. It's coming regardless, but I think right now is a pretty well amplified time to keep an eye on it for sure. Nothing out here across the Western Pacific. Look at that. That's quite strange. So that's why I'm saying something's big is brewing out here, whether it's going to be a mega quake across this area or we're going to see some type of other major event here across the Eastern Pacific and the potentially the Aleutian Trench as well, just bouncing back and forth between California and the Aleutian Trench. A little bit of movement way up north. I mean, that kind of makes sense here to see a little bit of activity along the boundary here. They call that the fair weather fault. I hate fair weather. I'm a weather guy. I want, rain. Okay, I won't go into that. But it makes sense here to see a little bit of earthquake activity with all the adjustment going on, technically around it here, up and down the plate boundary. Not a big earthquake, just a little 3.1 off the coast here, off of Juneau, Alaska region. This area has actually been somewhat quiet. I know there's probably a couple earthquakes in there. The place to check is going to be the Canada earthquake site. So we'll run over there real quick, just give a quick viewing, see what these guys have. There is the simple layout, plate boundary here in the blue. There's that current earthquake activity, pretty quiet in between here. That this is the last 30 days or more, it looks like, and there's nothing going on across this plate boundary. We do see at times some earthquake activity out here, but I don't recall the last time we had anything. Let me take a look here. I just want to go back because that's an important area of the North American and Pacific plate as well. All right, so we're going to go roughly, you can see the plate boundary out there. I don't want to go all the way down south to the Caspcadia, but right about, I guess that'd cover it. Let's see here. Just in the last 4 years, I pulled up 4.5 and above. Kind of curious to see. Yeah, look at that. Not a whole lot going on there. 6.5. That was at the extreme northern end of the Cascadia subduction zone earlier, this year, back in September. But along this plate boundary, awfully quiet. Nothing really shown up, at least in the last 4 years. 5.9 earlier this year, looks like, way up north here. But we'll watch that area. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities out here right now with things being amplified the way they are. Apparently, the earthquakes there in Alaska have come to a halt. Let's see here. I do have an Alaska station somewhere up here. There it is. That's right around the Adak region where we're seeing all the most recent earthquake activity here. By the way, 45 earthquakes. That's 2.5 and above. I don't know if these guys are reporting the smaller ones. Probably not. Similar to the Northern California activity, it doesn't seem like they want to report all the smaller quakes. Because I guarantee you, following all these 5s and 6s, there has to be a number of 3s and 2s out there. And they're only throwing in an occasional 2. No 1s, and I'm sure there's hundreds. Well, take that back, 2 1s. But I guarantee you there's a lot more than 2 1s that took place from all this activity. So a lot of focus, out here across this area of the plate boundary right now. That includes Northern California. Nevada still seeing some activity. Quite a bit of strain out here. Let's see what we got for a total tally for the Nevada quakes. Wow, look at that, 234. This is one area I can say that they are reporting the ones. Look at that. They're reporting probably every single one that's taken place here. Look at all those ones. So I don't understand why they wouldn't report it for Northern California or the Alaska area as well up here across the Aleutian Trench. Maybe just something to do with the reporting agency there in Nevada, getting the information out. But yeah, that's what it's supposed to look like when you have a 5.8 or 6-pointer. Lots of aftershocks in the 1, 2, 3 range, 4s, maybe an occasional 5. But this was a 5.8 to begin with. 1 4.2, couple other 3s in there. So for every certain amount of 3s, you're probably going to have double the 2s, which we do. And for a certain amount of 2s, you're probably going to have double or triple the 1s. And look at that. That rings true. So it should ring true for the California area and also for the Alaska area, but they're just not reporting it. For a total tally here, according to what they are reporting, only 366. That's 367. That's a lot of earthquake activity. But they're not reporting all the ones. Let's see what they are reporting. So there's the I don't even know if they're reporting all the 3s. Good handful of 3s. Good handful of 2s. Quite a few 2s. Quite a few 2s. Lots of 2s. And then you get down to the 1s here. There's maybe 15 1s, 20 1s. But that number should be way more than the 2s. So right now we're way higher in the 2s than we are 1s. So you could probably add a couple more 100 earthquakes onto the map for the 1 magnitudes. And no telling what after that, right? The microquakes below the 1.0. So, it's a... maybe it's something on their side. They can't report all the earthquakes. Who knows? Or maybe they don't have time to go through all the earthquakes that are taking place out there. But there's way more than what's being shown there on the map for California. Nevada is about the only area that is indeed showing all the earthquakes. Bay Area pretty quiet. One more earthquake inland here around the Dunnigan Hills. This is from this morning, a 2.3. But noticing definitely an uptick here across Sacramento Valley. It's quite rare to get earthquake activity out here. We had, prior to the 7-pointer there in Northern California, we had a 3.1, 2.7, 2.1. There's a 3.1 there outside of Maxwell. Missy Mimi's felt that earthquake up here outside of Willows. And that was prior to the bigger event up here in Northern California. That's why I say it's quite strained out here along that area of the plate boundary. Let's take a look at Southern California, see what's going on down there. I know they got that big fire outside of Malibu. That's pretty scary. Nothing above 2.5. There's that one little earthquake from yesterday up along the San Andreas Fault, the creeping segment, but nothing really in terms of any significant movement. In fact, this looks pretty quiet. All the focus right now is pretty much probably draw a line here from Reno westward. Got one earthquake, it looks like, coming in right now, 2.2 outside of Vallejo in the last few minutes. That is maybe off the Green Valley Fault there. So Southern California pretty quiet for now. Up across the rest of the country, a little bit of movement near the Hebgen Lake area outside of Yellowstone. I want to give a quick glance here at the Yellowstone overview, see what we have here. Make sure my microphone's good, which it is. Bells are off. Really not a whole lot of earthquake activity at all. I mean, if you look at these maps here, it might be 1, 2. Those are super duper small quakes. Maybe a 0.2 or a 0.3. But most of the time they don't really report those. Maybe one of them they did, a little 0.7, but pretty quiet up there across the Yellowstone area. Some further movement out in the New Madrid seismic zone. This came in last night when I was doing the update, 2.6. Nothing else today. Got a little bit of movement there across the Appalachian Mountains, a 2.3 from yesterday as well. Let's take a glance here at the world view. Pretty normal out here. Not seeing any elevated seismic activity. Typical regions getting hit, except for, that quiet zone out here. That's been eerily quiet since that 7-pointer out here across California. And that just doesn't happen all that often. So, we're got to watch this area. I still think we're going to see some larger movement, whether it's on the Caspcadia, maybe inland. Who knows? But it's definitely looking like there's still something about ready to hit out here, unless we get that major adjustment here across the western Pacific. The Big Island out there in the middle of it all, really not seeing any change. Well, out in the middle of the Pacific Plate, I should say. Really not seeing a whole lot of earthquake activity. I'm going to check out the latest information here put out yesterday. Kilauea Volcano sitting at a yellow and advisory. Look at the deformation chart here, which shows inflation. Let's see what we have. Fairly level. Here's a past week of inflation at the Kilauea Summit and East Rift Zone. Overall pattern, look at that, just fairly minimal. In fact, a little bit of downward trend. But it seems to be going through that phase. We'll have a little phase of uptrend, inflation, and then you get the down, which is deflation, up and then down, up. And this one here, a little bit further up in terms of the time frame, but it looks like we're leveling off here a little bit. So really nothing of any major change for now across that area. Seismograph stations look super duper quiet. All right, let's see. Anything else major going on out here across the world? Like I say, it's pretty quiet in certain regions there. South America area, quite a few 2s and 3s up there along the Peru-Chile Trench, but that's very common. Middle America Trench area, still seeing some swarming from yesterday. Puerto Rico Trench there, got a few earthquakes around the region. Nothing major going on there for now either. So all eyes, I guess, out here across this area of the world for now. As far as space weather activity goes, looks like we've seen a decent M flare here recently. Near X flare. That's going to be an M6.71. Since then, it looks like we dropped way down here, almost into the B flare category. That flare appears to be from that far side sunspot there across the western limb. That's pretty much out of sight, out of mind. That's why Kevin here is saying it's a parting shot, departing shot. Any CME that was associated with that strong flare, no doubt, directed a ways away from Earth. We're left with, there's a number of sunspots out here, but in terms of complexity, kind of hard to tell. Really not all that a big fan of the black and white magnetogram image here. I'm used to the colored image here that you can see the complexity of these different colors, but that's offline, and it has been since the 26th here. They had some kind of flooding incident there at the Solar Dynamics Observatory at the Stanford University. So hopefully they get that back up and running so we can get some get the images back up. Right now, still got a 10% chance for X flare, M flare at 55, C flare around 99% chance. No major auroras in the forecast for now. Pretty quiet out there. In terms of any close approach asteroids here, we haven't checked this in a couple days, so let's see what we got. Nothing really that would spark my mind in terms of closeness. That's fairly, close, but it's at a considerable distance there for a 20-foot car-size asteroid. Now, that depends on what type of car that is. I've seen some of these little cars that are no bigger than, looks like maybe 10 feet. Crazy. I don't know if I'd want to drive one of those. It's great in fuel, right? But if you get in even a bumper accident there, that would not be good. Storm Prediction Center here for severe weather. Got a pretty large area out here, the extreme eastern seaboard region, slight category. Got some chances there for some spinning water vapor with some tornado activity there in the green and the brown. Wind, but no hail threats. So Just a heads up there if you're around that region of the world. Newport News, Virginia included in the damaging wind gust area. It looks like also the tornado risk for 5% chance there. So just a heads up. That system eventually going to head off there into the Atlantic. One storm knocking on California's door out here late tonight, early tomorrow morning. Got a decent precipitation event coming in. Snow in the mountains, rain in the lower elevation. That appears to open up the storm door a little bit here for us, bringing a little bit stronger system as we head towards the weekend here for California. Northern California, that is. Southern California, pretty limited there. I wish I could say the Malibu. I don't know if the Malibu area is going to get any or not. Maybe little slight chance there. But we do have a number of storm systems coming in there. And long-range models, well, that's just a ways out. Can't really be so certain about it. But as far as the total accumulated precipitation runs out here, getting a decent amount here for Northern California, Oregon, and Washington. More up around the Vancouver Island range there. But we'll take, what are we getting, maybe about 3 inches or so here around my neck of the woods, following all these little series of storm systems coming in. I love it. It's my type of weather. In fact, I might even barbecue up some dinner tonight with the precipitation coming in. I know it's quite the opposite, right? Most people barbecue when it's a beautiful, bright, sunny day, which I still do, but I like it when it rains and the wind picks up. It blows the smoke. I like to use these, they're pecan wood pellets. Oh my gosh, it makes the meat super tasty. It doesn't matter actually what you're cooking on there, whether it's fish or meat or shish kebabs there with some veggies on it. It definitely gives a good flavor. All right, let's go check out the California wildfire down south here. That's pretty crazy, man. Here's Malibu. I was just down here a couple months ago investigating that earthquake swarm they had out here along that thrust fault. Looks like, that fire surrounding the Malibu area on both sides. There's the Pacific Coast Highway. I don't know how much of the Malibu area is affected. This here in the red looks to be the fire perimeter. The fire perimeter is going to be in this red. The lighter red's going to be the evacuation warning order. It's actually an order. Warning will probably be here in this other lighter color. But they got they got this thing under control or what? What's going on with this? 7% containment, almost burned 4,000 acres there. That's the thing. When I left Malibu to head back here to Northern California, we took which route was it? It was one of these routes here heading north. But it was heavily vegetated, super dense, and a lot of it looked really dry as well. And that was a couple months ago. And I was thinking, man, this is some major fire hazard here. And they just had the Santa Ana winds kick up out here a couple days ago, and that's what started this fire. I don't know the exact reason why it started, but hopefully they get this under control. 7% containment is not that good. Almost 4,000 acres there, so hopefully some of that rain that we're getting will venture down here and help with the firefighters, but also at the same time it could stir up the wind here without precipitation. So hopefully hoping for the best there for the folks down there in Southern Cal. All right, live stream is up and running, folks. We'll continue to keep an eye on things here. I got a number of seismograph stations that I'm watching, monitoring. Of course, the main ones right now, Petrolia there in Northern California. I do have an Alaska station as well. Dinsmore there is just a little bit further away from the coast than Petrolia. But any earthquakes above 2.0 should show up on both of those stations there that are in Northern California. And we'll just kind of keep an eye on things. It's kind of quiet for now, but this it's this area has definitely got some has had some interesting movement out here recently. I think we're just waiting for something big to pop out here, and it could be again out here across the western Pacific. It could be the Aleutian Trench, could be along the plate boundary here, it could be the Cascadia. So we'll just be on guard, stay safe, and we'll catch you guys back out here a little bit later, folks. Make sure you guys subscribe while you're here. Definitely appreciate it. And we'll see you guys back out here a little bit later.